I am pleased to welcome everyone today for our panel titled Demystifying ChatGPT. I'm sure you've heard that term before, how it works and what to know. We have a fantastic panel of experts that I am very happy to moderate today. Dr. Mirko Ravanelli, Dr. Tanya Tajmel, and Dr. Gisa Giesi, so thank you. And this event is just one of many events that kickstarts our Gina Cody School Day, a special celebration to recognize the achievements and success of our students, alumni, faculty, and staff, and really our entire Gina Cody School community. For those of you who are on social media, the hashtag for today's celebration is hashtag Gina Cody School. We encourage you to share your pride online. You can record a video or post a message about what being part of the Gina Cody School community means to you. Of course, use the hashtag, or you can tag a student, professor, grad, or staff member who inspires you, whether it's at the Gina Cody School or outside. Gina Cody School students and alumni who post by midnight EST time, will be entered to win one of 10 prepaid gift cards valued at $100 each. So that should be a good incentive. And if you are wearing your Gina Cody School branded gear, such as t-shirts, sweaters, or hats, we also have a team of scouts on site who will be giving out gift cards. So wear your gear with pride. And of course, you can find out more about the day, the events that we have in the afternoon, by visiting concordia.ca GCS Day for more information. Now, I would like to invite the Dean of the Gina Cody School of Engineering and Computer Science, Dean Murad Dibabi, to say a few words.
I'm very happy to welcome you all to the third annual Gina Cody School Day. We are truly had an amazing year. So a lot of achievement this year in terms of excellence of teaching, enhancing our teaching, enhancing our research, enhancing equity, diversity, and inclusion at the Gina Cody School. So you would have seen by now a lot of announcements of major initiatives, major partnerships, major inventions that took place at the Gina Cody School, important research results, and so on. So more is to come, and really the future is very bright for this school, very, very bright. And we are witnessing a huge growth at the Gina Cody School. We stand proud as the largest engineering and computer science school in Quebec and one of the largest in Canada. We are the home to nearly 250 faculty members and more than 12,000 students, each with their own unique set of talents and skills. The wonderful members of our community are what enable our school capacity for advancing teaching and for advancing research. This also creates amazing training opportunities for our students with all the partnership that I mentioned, with all the initiatives that are taking place. These are amazing training opportunities for our students. To that end, I would like to yield in a few minutes to Emad and our panelists today to talk about a very important topic that is very timely, very relevant, and very important nowadays, which is the topic of ChatGPT. I think all of us have heard or used this tool. It's a wonderful tool. And we are very curious to know how does it work, what are the technologies behind it in terms of what kind of deep learning models are there, what are the ethical and moral implications of using such a technology. So we will be very eager and curious to know from the panelists and from Emad moderating the panel on such important topic. So before yielding to Emad and his panelists, I'd like to invite you to be with us today at 5:30 p.m. There will be a virtual student showcase, and it's a wonderful opportunity to celebrate the achievement of our students. So you are welcome to join us on this student showcase. So I hope I see you all there, and without any further delay, I will pass the floor to Emad and his panelists to present the discussion on ChatGPT. Thank you.
First is Dr. Mirko Ravanelli, He is an assistant professor in our Department of Computer Science and Software Engineering. Mirko's research focuses on deep learning methods for conversational AI. He is founder of a major project in conversational AI called SpeechBrain. You can Google it. I'm sure you'll hear a lot about it. He is also an adjunct professor at the University of Montreal and a member of MILA, Quebec's AI Institute. I guess MILA is well known in Montreal and Quebec, but it is a research community that specializes in machine learning. So welcome.
Thank you.
Next, we have Dr. Tanya Tajmel, who is an associate professor in our Center for Engineering and Society. Dr. Tanya is a Concordia University Research Chair in EDI, which is Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion in STEM, so science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. It is always a pleasure to have Tanya on such panels. She is also a special advisor to the Dean on matters of EDI, and Tanya's research investigates politics of STEM education and their impact on social equity and inequality. So nice to have you,
Thank you.
Tanya. And our third panelist is Dr. Gita Giassi, who is a senior research advisor at the University de Montréal and also a research associate in the EDI lab here at the Gina Cody School. She is also an affiliate assistant professor in the Center for Engineering and Society at Concordia, and her research focuses on the effects new technologies can have on our society. I think a topic that is very relevant to our discussion today. Also, Gita is a proud graduate. She received her PhD in 2018 from the Gina Cody School. So please join me in finally welcoming Mirko, Tanya, and Gita. Okay, so maybe I will start the panel by asking the question just to make sure we're all on the same page. And maybe my first question is to you, Mirko. So what is ChatGPT? And more importantly, why is it such a big breakthrough? Why did it reach 1 million users in 5 days?
Yeah. All right. So I guess many of you already use, right? So essentially, ChatGPT is a chatbot, right? And we can ask ChatGPT pretty much everything we want. Okay. So when we use ChatGPT, we have the impression to talk to a very smart robot, right? So to interact with someone which is really very smart. Okay. So more technically, the technology behind ChatGPT is called deep learning, that was mentioned already. And this technology, we won't go into detail, of course, of that, but this technology is going to help the model understanding what we ask and figuring out the reply to that makes sense, right? So this model is pretty impressive because it is trained on a lot of data, really a lot, and it is also trained with a very powerful computer, right? So at the level that we, in academia, for instance, we cannot have. So it's really impressive, the way we train this model. And also, they reach this performance by taking advantage of human feedback. So there are also humans involved in training this model. So why it is a breakthrough? So my point of view is that in certain aspects, ChatGPT is really a breakthrough, and in some other aspect it is not. So let me explain. So why it is a breakthrough? Well, because the performance is impressive, right? So all people were impressed, including me, that I know I'm working in the field of deep learning since several years, and when I used the first time ChatGPT, I was really shocked, right? So in general, we didn't know that this level of technology was possible, this level of performance was possible with the current technology. So ChatGPT is just like massively scaling up existing technology. We didn't know that was just enough to have such an amazing performance. So I think the breakthrough is like from the social point of view, because it's like something that made clear to everyone what we can do with this technology and what can be the impact of that in our lives, and we will discuss that later. Let me just tell you also why I don't think is a breakthrough in certain aspects. Because from the scientific standpoint, ChatGPT is just scaling up existing technology that is well known, just scaling it up massively, right? So you can think about ChatGPT as an amazing and impressive engineering effort, but from the scientific point of view, there is nothing really new. Like, I don't know, the models that were publicly available before were like cheap car, and ChatGPT is a Ferrari, but it's still a car, right? With the wheels, the engine. So it's impressive from some point of view, but from the scientific point of view, there is no big novelty.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Maybe I want to pick on a small point there that you talked about briefly, which is data. And so when you look at it, I think the major difference between, let's say, GPT-2 and GPT-3 was the amount of data that it was trained on. And I know that yesterday, OpenAI announced GPT-4. So maybe I wanted to ask you, is it just a matter of more data? And can we ever run out of data to get better?
Yeah, I mean, according to OpenAI, yes, it's just a matter of data. I don't think so. Maybe I will comment later when we'll discuss about the future. But yeah, it's not just a matter of data. In my opinion, it's a matter of designing something which is really clever. And yeah, GPT-4 is like a further extension that goes along this direction, right? Also, the biggest novelty maybe you heard is that now the system can digest images, right? You can give images in input and not just text. Apart from that, is a little bit incremental. Like they claim that the system is better at math, better at coding, better at exams, right? That's something we have to consider.
We'll get to that,
of course. But it's like a kind of incremental improvement. That's all what we know now.
Okay, thanks, Mirko. So maybe now I want to move a little bit to how we would apply ChatGPT, and of course, I think that there is a revolution happening in that we feel a lot of industries are being impacted or changed or improved or enhanced by ChatGPT. So maybe I have a question now for Gita. From a society usability point of view, which industries do you think are actually going to be impacted the most by ChatGPT and why?
So to answer this question, I will first talk about I think it's better to talk about what are the usages of ChatGPT, and then I can talk about which industries can be impacted the most. So the most, I think it's obvious to everybody, the most important usage of ChatGPT is text generation. But it can also use, for example, for question answering. It can also use for translation, and it can also be used for sentimental even analysis, and also text summarization. So it has a many applications. So if you want to kind of say which industries it will impact, so any industry that works with the writing and the text, so which means basically every industry. But what it can impact the most, to me, it is mostly is services. It's service, even producing industries. And so among these industries, it can be professional, technical, and scientific services industries in the terms for example, advertising, for content management, or for example, for even legal advising, for counseling, and even for financial advising or financial services as well. And one other thing, it can be also been used in research, and which is also related to that is about for example educational services. It's also related to, for example, even teaching, even learning the way that we are learning. And last but not least, there has been like huge discussions even about like its implications for healthcare industry. They can also like act, for example, to facilitate making like medical notes, or like even to use for as a checkup, like for the symptoms that can also like in the end like help for the diagnosis of a disease. So it has like huge implications that can impact like many industries.
Yeah, that's interesting, and I think as you mentioned some of these, it brings up some examples that real concrete examples, I guess, that are even close to home. I remember I was talking to a real estate agent friend of mine, and he said to me, Emad, yesterday I posted my first ChatGPT description of a house to sell. So it was it hit me because it was such a real life experience of somebody really using it. And he said, I had to make some modifications, but overall it made the job that would usually take me half a day 30 minutes. So it's super interesting, and I think as perhaps we get to trust it more, maybe medicine or something else is not too far off. And I think also with what Mirko said, and with the new additions of including images, I think that is probably where they're going, right? They're trying to get it to be able to do more than just text, but really can it help, for example, diagnose something, or I don't know, detect a structural error in a building or something like that. But super interesting. So maybe I want to abstract a little bit out and say, I think as we start using these, there's definitely an impact on our society. And maybe Tanya, I go to you here. How do you see ChatGPT impacting us as a society? Should we expect to talk to a machine at one day? Is this going to be the new norm?
I'm afraid this is already very often the new norm. So thanks for the question. I think I would like to address it also from a perspective of equity, diversity, inclusion, and diversity in ChatGPT. So as you all experienced, ChatGPT can be a very great help, especially for non-English native speakers to produce texts in English, right? So from this perspective, we would say, okay, this is a great help, which provides even more fairness, which provides even more inclusivity in producing the texts. But I also would like to quote a proverb of Bruce Schneier, who is a security technologist at Harvard Kennedy School. And he said, if you think technology can solve your problems, you don't understand the problems and you don't understand the technology. So solving the inclusivity problems or diversity problems are probably not be able to be solved by ChatGPT and by technology. Also, when we talk about language, normally in education, in technical writing education, in writing education, we consider and we respect that language learning takes time, which means every one of you, we all know that when we learn a second language, when we learn a foreign language, it takes time. It takes 1 to 2 years to have basic interpersonal communication skills, and it takes even more, maybe 6 years, 7 years to have academic, professional communication skills. Now, when we look at ChatGPT and we get a production of a nearly perfect text, then maybe our understanding of what it takes to speak, to produce texts will completely change, which means we might be more, let's say, impatient if somebody is not producing a perfect text immediately. We might be more not so much tolerant when there is a mistake, and mistakes are basically a part of language learning. So I think this is an application or an implication that we need to consider. Speaking or remaining on the topic of language, currently there are 7,000 languages in the world, not counting the dialects, so 7,000 languages. 48% of these languages are at risk of extinction. We know, since this is the recent paper of GPT-4, which was published yesterday, that ChatGPT is working well with 27 languages, or let's say up to 60% or something like that. But we can expect that ChatGPT and these kinds of technologies will not support the diversity of languages. right? So it will not support that. And what I also would like to mention is that since 2022, from 2022 to 2023, there is the decade of the indigenous languages, because especially indigenous languages are at risk of distinction. And we have to think about how these technologies are responding to these threats, to these risks. So how can technologies be used to save languages? That is actually the question that would also be interesting. Another thing that, of course, needs to be discussed when it comes to society is bias. So bias, very simplified, bias would be that one group or one characteristics is privileged among another. Which means you have, and you all are aware of the gender bias, for example, that men to a certain extent have better chances in life than women. You all know of racial bias, that white people have better chances at a certain extent than people of color, and so on. So these are the biases, and we can talk about them in, let's say, statistically. We can say the probability that you have better chances in life are much higher when you are white, when you are male, when you are middle class, when you are English speaking, right? And in the same vein, the probability that you have difficulties in life are very low when you are black, when you are a woman, when you are not English speaking, when you are of a lower income family or poor family, right? These biases, they exist, and they are amplified by artificial intelligence, because not on purpose, but simply because the reality is feeding the algorithm, right? The algorithm is learning on that. So this will be amplified. We have to be prepared for that as well. Now, OpenAI, actually I like the title OpenAI, or I would like to talk about that also a little bit, because OpenAI is not so open. So in fact, they are taking the word open, which is from the open source community, and are using it, but it's not open at all. Now, OpenAI is to a certain extent aware of these risks. Of course they are. They are even mentioning them in their paper. And they say, well, ChatGPT has to, should not provide any output for dangerous, let's say, of content or knowledge which is dangerous, like building a bomb. They tested it with building a bomb, and this output would be excluded. And they have a team of 50 experts who are assessing which outputs or which themes, which knowledge should be included. These 50 experts are selected by OpenAI. They are not democratically elected. If we look at the parliaments in the world, the Canadian parliament has about 450 seats, members. The parliament in Kenya has 350 members. The parliament in India has 788. I took a look today morning, 88 members. Normally, these questions are discussed by democratically elected people. Normally, these discussions take time, right? And normally, not 50 experts are deciding on something like that, but they would be elected. So this is also something that needs to be considered. Who are the experts? Who are selecting the experts? And just to give you an idea, here at Concordia, more than 100 nationalities are represented. Our student body consists of more than 100 nationalities. So not even an expert from each nationality would be presented. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Tanya. So maybe keeping on the topic of experts, I would like, and I think this is a question on all of our minds, I think Concordia is probably not the only institution thinking about the use of ChatGPT. I think many universities around the world, whether it's in Canada, the US, or wherever, are trying to really find out how to deal with ChatGPT. They're trying to pass policies on, update policies, I would say, on how to deal with the uses of ChatGPT in, for example, learning and teaching. So we are in an academic institution, so I'm sure, we would all be curious as to how to use it. So my question to you is, what does the use of ChatGPT mean for either academic institutions, but more broadly for our future generations? Should we incorporate, do you see a life where we incorporate this into our daily learning? Or do you see this as perhaps the lazy way out? So yeah, I open that up for anyone on the panel. But yeah, Tanya, please get us started.
Okay, so I think what the implications or what I personally learned from it for education is that that there is a need to train engineering students, computer science students in being aware of these ethical issues, in understanding, okay, there are only 50 experts, seeing these potential issues. Because currently the European Parliament is working on new regulations for AI. There need to be regulations for AI, and these regulations need people who are developing them, which means the politicians who are deciding on them need experts. And the experts will be technical experts, but these will also be experts who have an understanding of the technical, of the social issues related to this technology. I think this is a kind of skill or a competence of experts which is becoming more and more important. And I'm happy to say that Gina Cody School is offering great courses in this regards, and I'm very confident that our students here are and will be well prepared to answer these questions on a global level. I give it to Gita.
Well, to me, is that like in academia, in my opinion, is that like it is already there. It is already playing. ChatGPT is already like playing a great role, and it has become, as of now, it has become a source that. Well, today I was like telling my students that students, as kind of a distance making between students and teacher, in the sense that like students love it and teachers hate it, and but honestly, like this is also like kind of like deconstructing the power relationship between teacher and students, which it's kind of like, which is a much needed discussion in academia. And maybe it's making it like more and more like important to have this discussion like openly. And also like about the fact that like even like the way that we, even like for example, we are defining assignments, we are defining the grading, even the way that we do the grading, the power that the professor has over the grade of his students. These all have to be discussed, and also like maybe like we need to deconstruct it in a more democratic way, that it can also like, I can say, it can also incorporate like both like the usage of this application and also like the research integrity that we are looking into.
Yeah, and I guess speaking of integrity, I know OpenAI themselves, that are not so OpenAI, that are themselves actually put out a tool to detect text that is automatically generated by AI. And I remember I used it on a disclaimer, full disclaimer. I used it on an abstract of a paper that we wrote like 5 years ago. And I would say that for the most part, it was correct. But for one of them, it said it was actually generated by AI. So I emailed the student immediately and wanted to extract his brain. No, just kidding. But I mean, so it's not perfect, right? That's the point. And I think we're sort of heading in different directions. So you have these tools that are trying to detect, but at the same time, I think with GPT-4, we're only getting better. So at some point, I feel like the AI will get so good, or these language models will be so good that it will be more and more difficult to detect these things. So it's really I think a dilemma. But anyway, so maybe now I want to change course a little bit and think about the future, because I think that's what's on everybody's mind. So Mirko, from your perspective, from a technology perspective, what do you see as the future for ChatGPT or such tools? And I will maybe start you off by saying we clearly see the big war, if you will, between Microsoft, Bing search, and Google. And of course, we know that Google declared a code red now, meaning that they see integration of such tools into the Google search. So there's big implications for this, right? So what do you see as the future, and what do you see as the implications?
Well, there is a hot debate in the scientific community about, of course, ChatGPT, and especially people are thinking, is this the right way to build a really intelligent machine that will bring us to artificial general intelligence, right? So there is a debate. My personal opinion is that I'm not really sure ChatGPT is really intelligent, right? So ChatGPT what it's doing is like, it is taking like pieces of information here and there and connecting this information in a very, very elegant way. Is that enough to be intelligent? Maybe no, right? I think that intelligence has to deal more with the reasoning, logic, with the causality. And to really be intelligent, we need to understand the world around us much more deeply than what we can have with ChatGPT. I think also in the future, the system should play more an active role than a passive role. I mean, humans learn a lot by interacting with each other, right? And learn a lot by talking to each other and in general interacting in the environment where they are immersed to. This is not how ChatGPT works. ChatGPT is just like trained from text, plain text, so it's very passive. So I think the way to build intelligent system is still very long, right? Mm-hmm. And we are not there, and not sure the approach followed by ChatGPT is the right way. For sure, it's the dominant way these days, but I think the way is still long, and it's very exciting doing research these days on this topic. As for your question about Google, things, yeah, I mean, in the short term, that we will see big companies that will come out with similar systems. I'm sure Google, I'm sure because I know companies like Google, Facebook, they already have similar systems, but it couldn't release because, for a big company, it's very hard to release such a big models because there are many implications, many privacy. So big companies are typically under pressure, a lot of pressure. Like a startup, let's call it startup, like OpenAI, instead has has less pressure, and they are more free, right there, to release such kind of system. That's why this system came out by OpenAI and not by Google. But the Google, all the big companies, they have the same technology. We all have the same technology, and big companies will come out with something similar very soon. They already did somehow.
Yeah, and I would say that maybe one point that I want to mention. I know we've had a discussion about this before. Is this notion of multimodal, right? Or the ability of these. I think there's a lot of pressure now to integrate more than just text, right? To integrate videos, to integrate photos, and I guess, I mean, I'm sort of worried, about privacy. So I guess that there are also societal impacts. So maybe Tanya, Gita, what do you think? What do you see as some of the road ahead for such tools? Do you think that it will be a very bumpy road or a very smooth road? I think so far it's been fairly smooth.
To me, is that if we want to define what the future will look like, so I know maybe till now we had more of the human machine interaction, but in the not very far future we will have a machine to machine reaction, interaction, and that humans will supervise what the machines are saying, and this could have both good implications and bad implications. So in a sense that, for example, we put some examples on the slides that, in a sense that as long as these, but anyway, as long as, for example, the examples that we put on the slides, they were kind of talking about so the first one was that I asked ChatGPT. This is the translation one. Yeah. So this is anyway, many of you may speak Farsi or Persian. So Persian is a gender neutral language. So again, we don't have he or she, we have they. So in a way that I asked ChatGPT just to translate it. So as if okay, they studies at the Faculty of Engineering. Just translate this, and it translated to he is. And I asked ChatGPT, they is a nurse. It translated to she is. I asked, they is taking care of a baby. It translated that she is taking care of a baby. So again, these are, for example, really, again, Google Translate also, had it. And the thing is that, they are now trying to tackle that. And this has been, honestly, it has been a discussion for a long time there. And it was out there. Honestly, it's not a new thing. But ChatGPT, without addressing the same thing that Google Translate already, trying to address that. And just, they're trying to put their program out there. So that was surprising to me because I thought that ChatGPT would do a better job. And most important thing is for example, I was on another subject was the first slide. We kind of ask like for the territorial acknowledgement, just like for ChatGPT to generate territorial acknowledgement. And then, so again, like for example, here in Quebec, when we have Emad like give the territorial acknowledgement in the beginning, so one thing that is quite political and one is quite like important for the indigenous community to be acknowledged is that like here we are located on unceded land. And the thing is that like ChatGPT, at least like for the generations of ancestors that I had, like had left out this critical wording. And it kind of like created it by in a way that it's actually like if we give it like it's not as sensitive as it should be. So again, like I think that like in the future, like we humans, like we will like supervise that, but it will be like kind of like machine to machine interaction. But I think the most important aspect will become like we always have to pay attention to the important role of like ethical and social implications of these conversations, of these communications that we are having.
Maybe to give a positive example of machine-to-machine interaction, I recall seeing online somebody who actually used ChatGPT to talk to one of these bots for, I think, their Verizon phone bill, and they were able to reduce their Verizon phone bill $5. So they just had the bot talking to ChatGPT. It was actually excellent. Give me an idea. Anyway, so now maybe I would like to move and open the floor to questions from the audience. Perhaps there are some questions from the audience. So if you want, I think the easiest way is just to speak to the mic, just so others can hear you. Or you can yell, it's up to you. But if it's easy, perhaps just coming up to the mic and asking the question. I saw one here and one over there.
Hi.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hi, this has been really wonderful. I just want to speak to maybe what Tanya and Gita said about their experience, how OpenAI is not open, but we might need to move towards something like Wikipedia, but also have a structured way of curating, like maybe even like ethical hacking OpenAI to know, like what's passing through, because we've heard that there's been cybersecurity, there's problems like malware was developed through use of OpenAI, and it wasn't it was very good malware. So yeah, there's all these issues, and personally, I've played with it as well, and I asked give me a top 10 list of female authors in this field, and I got a mixed bags of male authors, yeah. And I was just like, okay. I gave it feedback. I told it you did a bad job. This authors are considered male. Can you do that again? And it actually told me it's not trained on that. But there's metadata in books. There's usually a biography. So I really thought this was an easy one. So when we're asking harder questions, what are we going to get? And I've had a lot of hallucination when I ask culturally specific questions. So yeah, I think we might have to think, how can we give feedback to OpenAI that they're willing to consider? Because there's been a lot of junk during their trial period of having feedback from individuals. So yeah, I just wanted to agree, and I think those are really big issues.
Thank you for that. I think there was a question, in the back there, and then one in the.
Hi, thanks for a great discussion. So I was wondering about some need of regulation, if we use ChatGPT in sensitive use cases like medical sector or financial sector, how do we ensure the correctness of information? So as Dr. Tanya said, that just relying on 50 or some experts might not be enough. And when we have multiple platforms like ChatGPT or some other thing or maybe more, do we need to have some external regulation or something like that? Thank you.
Very interesting question.
Thank you for the question. Also, thank you for your question. So maybe I briefly start with answering yours and then coming to your question, or just giving a short answer. Well, transparency is everything about these systems. And I think this is also the reason why the European Parliament put it as, I think, still high-risk technology, which means they consider it a high-risk technology. So because of the amongst others, because of the lack of transparency. Now, you said we should report that to OpenAI or remind them of it. I guess they are pretty much aware of a lot of things that they are doing, so I'm not sure if this is just happening by chance. But anyway, and thank you for this question. That's also very important. I think this is about limitations of a technology as well, right? So what is the limitation? And having the notion that ChatGPT can do everything, and even reinforcing this notion by, I don't know, putting it on the Times magazine cover, you know, it's a very important person already. So normally you have to be a president of the United States or Greta Thunberg to be on the cover of Time magazine. But this is already somehow reinforcing the notion that this is the solution to everything. And I think we have to be very clear that there are limitations and that this technology will not answer all the questions that we have. Maybe Gita, you want to?
Yeah, so basically, I think that, yeah, definitely, like, there's a limitation. And I kind of, like, one thing that I appreciate about ChatGPT is that it acknowledges limitations as well. So many times in the answers, it really, like, acknowledges its limitations, and it kind of, like, gives you an idea that what the limitations are. So it's not giving it for every answer, but for some of them, it gives this, at least, like, acknowledges the limitations that it has. And one other important aspect is that I don't think ChatGPT maybe it's one of the first commercialized, like, hype one, but I don't think it's the last one. I'm pretty sure, like, soon we will have, like, many large language models in general, like, for example, in terms of, like, even open source. They're coming out. I think they are already there. They're, like, building on that, and maybe they even, like, take over ChatGPT, you know. So the regulations definitely, like, I think that, like, as Tanya was saying, it's kind of, like, necessary, but and again, like, as much the regulations, like, they're quite necessary, like, to be basically, like, at least, like, these are needs, like, to be discussed in the terms of, like, policy perspective, and what kind of, again, like, even, like, with the use of ChatGPT, and it's also, like, the policy implications, like, in terms of, like, for example, like, ethical, like, in general, like, EDI aspects also, like, they are quite necessary to be discussed, and it's kind of, like, to be addressed.
Can I a
Please, yeah.
very quick comment? So I think, you know, every time there is a new technology, from one side we are excited, from one side we are concerned, and that's good and healthy. So we have to understand the limitation. But I just think that in the long term we will get used to that, right? We not just to ChatGPT but also to AI. Now we know that, for instance, AI can generate deep fakes, right? So every time we read something, we have to be highly skeptical, and so this thing is going to change the world, but I think we are still very intelligent, and we will adapt ourselves to this technology, right? It's just the transition that can be painful, let's say.
Yeah, and perhaps to follow up on that, Mirko, I think a big part is, and we've seen this, for example, with GDPR, right? So usually the technology comes first and the regulations come later. But absolutely, you know, your point is absolutely on point, that you do, particularly for sensitive, you know, industries like medicine or financial advice, you know, probably you want to have some regulation around that. I think today the solution is a disclaimer that's given by ChatGPT, right? It just says, this is the medical advice, take it or leave it at your own risk. Maybe we have time for one more question, so we'll go back there, okay.
I think there.
So I think he had his.
Yeah,
okay.
we can take both of them. It's fine.
All right, let's go back there and then let's go here.
Yep.
Yes?
Sorry.
So yeah, thank you very much for all your answers. But there's one thing that came to mind. We've been talking a lot about the ethical and implications of the communication and of the answers of ChatGPT, but we haven't really talked about the ethical implications of using ChatGPT to replace actual people. Because we talk often about how ChatGPT could give you wrong answers, but I mean, I've had personal experience of actual doctors giving bad answers and things like that. So rather than just the implication of, okay, I've talked with a bot and the bot gave me a bad answer, I'm thinking, what is your opinion on the implication of, all right, I talked to a bot that replaced 120 doctors in this place, and now, well, we end up with a lot of people that are either out of jobs or that have major implications in their life. So I would like to know a little bit what you think about that, since you're experts on the field.
So this is a very good question. Thank you very much. So about the workforce equity in overall, so the services industries and the ones that ChatGPT will impact the most, especially like about financial services, educational services, they are female-dominated industries. And so the jobs, and again, like when we are talking like ChatGPT has an impact, it is like both, like, you know, in the terms that it is positive, you know, it's also like it's negative. So at the same time, so like, but the thing is that like if it kind of like, for example, if you are talking about the jobs that, you know, ChatGPT in general can take away, not take away, in general reduce, I will talk about, because of the increase in the performance and the like. So again, the thing is kind of like most of these jobs, when we're talking about like, for example, customer services, when we're talking about like, again, like advertising, when we are talking about even like, for example, healthcare services, like basically we're kind of talking about like medical notes or like taking in notes, or like we kind of saying like summarizing the notes. These jobs are so, for example, for an analysis in the Canadian industry, they are like female dominated, and that like, and if these jobs are taken away, and if it's producing, even like it's producing job in AI industry we are knowing that is male dominated. So it's kind of like taking job from like women and like giving a job more to men. So these are the things that we also like, these are the ethical dimensions that in society we have to be ready and have to think about it as well. And one other thing about the, for example, about our research that we did about the AI industries is that intersectional analysis and the quite importance of the because like when we are considering like, for example, like gender, and when we are looking into like the gender dimension in these industries by age, or like even like from the gender perspective, or like, for example, by the indigenous population, visible minority population, and like persons with disabilities, this can go worse and worse. So again, like these are like really, really important topics that thank you for bringing that up. It's a really important thing that we also like, even like as a society, we need to be aware of that, and we need to address that.
But one quick thing, that always happens, right? So every time we have a new technology, it creates jobs, it destroys. So it's like still a matter of adapting to the technology and, you know, hope for a smooth transition. And that's where regulation can help.
Absolutely. Okay, so maybe we take the last question. Yes, please.
Yes, so I have a question. It's more maybe directed to you, Professor.
Me?
Yeah,
Sure.
so I am kind of asking, like, a lot of these new generative artificial intelligence applications are resorting towards learning from natural language, and it as a steering wheel to kind of understand and operate around human intelligence. So I'm wondering if this is, I know it's the trend, natural language seems to be the thing that is driving a lot of these applications. And do you believe that it's really truly the way to go for understanding general human intelligence or general artificial intelligence? Is there an over-reliance on natural language? Of course, we understand a natural language demonstrates a lot of human biases, but do you believe that there is another way to go about it?
Yeah. I was mentioning before, I agree with that. So NLP is just one modality, right? But if you take a look at humans, right? Humans are very smart, still much smarter than ChatGPT, because we put together different modalities, right? We rely on text, we have speech, we have vision, we have everything together, and also we learn in an active way. So we learn by interacting with an environment, by talking to each other. So it's very different what we do to what like a system like ChatGPT can do. So I don't think a single modality like text or maybe just adding images is going to solve the problem. We have to go really multiple. We have to deal with multiple modalities at the same time, and also change the learning paradigm from passive to active learning. That's my feeling.
Absolutely, and maybe I'll take this chance to do a shameless plug to say we do have a conversational AI course here in the Gina Cody School, taught by Mirko. So, and also we have social aspects of AI course taught by Tanya. So I think that here at the Gina Cody School, we are keeping at the forefront of technology and its advancements. And I know there are other courses as well, many other courses even in other departments in specific areas. Like I know there's one, the use of AI in buildings and so forth. So please do stay here or come here if you're not here. Okay, I'm sorry, I'll have to close it here, but I would like to really thank our panelists once again for a great discussion. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not going to open again the panel, but I'd like to say I'm really fascinated by this technology. It shows the path. It shows what's coming in the future in terms of AI technologies. It shows the potential. And I'm also fascinated by the fact, if you look at the number of employees in this company, is 300 plus employees. Together on an engineering project, Mirko said it's not necessarily advancing the state of the art in terms of AI models, but it's optimizing their use and engineering systems with existing models and training them on massive data. Still, it's impressive engineering project, 300 people generating a technology that fascinates all the world, and the market cap of the company is still 20 billion plus, if I'm not mistaken. Last time I did check, maybe they are up or down, but still very impressive. It shows the potential that we can have at a school like the Gina Cody School with 12,000 students, 250 faculty members. If we come together on R&D initiatives, on student projects, we can do a lot. We can achieve a lot. So I would like to say a few words to thank the event organizers, and in particular Advancement, for the wonderful organization. I'd like to thank you all also for attending this talk. And I'm really thrilled, and it's a privilege to have such dedicated and amazing students, alumni, faculty, and staff coming together to celebrate the Gina Cody School Day. I look forward to seeing you today in participating on the social media with us and celebrating with us the Gina School Day. And also, I look forward to see you at the Student Showcase this evening. It's a virtual event, so please join and let's continue the celebration together. Thank you.